We're talking Chicago Bears. I was just talking about how I just watching the NFL. I think it's good news for the Chicago Bears that I'm just looking around and I don't really see a lot of great teams. I don't see any behemoths. I don't see any juggernauts. And when you look at least at the Bears' upcoming schedule, the next 7 weeks, a schedule that I thought was going to be pretty tough has definitely softened up in some areas. This Commanders matchup, starting with it, I think it's a winnable game. Going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. You know, Lamar might play in that game, but their defense is awful. I like that matchup. The Bengals, I really like that matchup. Now, I had that chalked down as a big old fat L before the season started. But it all starts coming off a bye week, going to Washington, and trying to exorcise some demons.
This house is clear.
Against the Commanders on Monday Night Football. Going back to the scene of the crime where the failed Mary happened. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, I mean, this is almost like a Xerox copy. And I think the NFL knew what it was doing when it did this, right? And for the Bears, they've played their part. They're coming off an incredibly galvanizing win. Bears fan base feeling pretty good about itself, heading into the bye. Starting to dream a little bit. I know I am. I know I'm rubbing my hands together and starting to think about what could be. Where could it go? How high can it fly? But it starts 1 week at a time. And they have to go into Washington and they have to figure out how to win a game. And again, it's the same Xerox situation of last year. If the Bears beat the Commanders, I think you can catapult yourself a little bit into not dreaming big, but starting to dream a little bit about, is this Bears team frisky? Is this Bears team the type of team that could be in playoff contention this year? You look around the NFL, especially the NFC, and every single team has flaws right now, and it's all just about wins. These aren't style points. It's all W's on a sheet of paper. And if the Chicago Bears lose this game, they drop to 2-3. Those playoff numbers definitely nosedive. And maybe you're stuck a little bit more in the, are the Chicago Bears just kind of that mediocre team that will flirt with 500, be one game over, get back to 500, feel good about yourself, kind of that yo-yo type feeling all year. And maybe it's more of a transition year with this Ben Johnson team. And when we're talking about our keys to a Chicago Bears victory versus the Washington Commanders, I'm just going to start off with, I'm just fascinated to watch a Ben Johnson team out of a bye week. And this is a rite of passage for all NFL head coaches. And for some NFL coaches like Andy Reid in Kansas City, he's the guy who's actually turned it into a legacy about how great he's been coming out of a bye week. Matt Nagy, in many ways, it's what sunk his career about how terrible he was at times coming out of bye weeks. And Matt Eberflus was just pretty bad all the time. So it didn't really matter whether you gave Matt Eberflus a week off or not. Chances were he was going to do the wrong thing either way. But coming out of a bye week, what are the old cliches? What are some of the old adages, right, of a Bears team? Well, the first one, obviously, is you would like to think that they're going to be a little bit cleaner, especially at the line of scrimmage, right? You don't want to see, especially in the first quarter, them with any pre-snap penalties. You, especially in the first quarter, don't want to see them have to burn a timeout because they get out of the huddle late, they get to the line, 3-2, can't get the playoff, call a timeout, reset, all that stuff. You want to see a clean operation. And also you just want to see, is everything moving a little bit smoother? Is everyone in concert a little bit more? And the one part, too, especially with the bye week, is I want to see this offensive line has done a fine job. And I would say in many ways they've done a borderline good job. But I do want to see coming out of this bye week, has this Bears offensive line begun the process of meshing together a little bit more? As the weeks and the reps go on, has the communication gotten better between them? And is there a way where they can slowly begin to elevate their game? And when we talk about the keys, you know, Ben Johnson after the bye, what has he got cooked up? He's had 2 weeks to look at the Commanders. He's had a lot of time to prep, a lot of time to look at the weaknesses, a lot of time to draw up a couple of plays, find some wrinkles, gain some leverage, and then unleash those plays at the right moment. And one of my biggest keys is going to start with the Bears offensive line. And look, I think they've done a really nice job. To this point right now, Caleb Williams has been sacked only one time over his last 2 games. He's cut his sack rate just through 4 games, so a lot of time to go. He's cut his sack rate in half, which I believe was over 10% of the time last year. It's around 5% right now. I think a lot of credit of that has to do with Ben Johnson getting the ball out of Caleb's hands. Credit to Caleb Williams for getting the ball out of his hands. He's the one that has to make that decision. And then credit to the offensive line, because I do believe, especially the interior, you can just tell that result of the play or not, Caleb has more confidence just sitting in the pocket and figuring it out than he did last year. And my big one right now is that this offensive line, the next step for them, and protecting the quarterback is always the priority. The next step for them is they got to figure out this running game. How do we get the running game going? And it's hard to do that when there's a lot of uncertainty right now at both tackle positions. And as of this taping on Thursday, and you honestly, listening here on Saturday on WLS AM 890, you might not know yourself about who exactly is going to be playing right tackle for the Chicago Bears, who's going to be playing left tackle for the Chicago Bears. At right tackle, Darnell Wright is dealing with a UCL injury, ulnar collateral ligament injury. The type of injury that would actually sideline a lot of pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's a right tackle. He doesn't quite need it like that, but it's probably painful and restrictive. And at left tackle, I don't think Braxton Jones is getting his job back anytime soon. And I don't think they're going to move to Ozzie Trapillo. I think right now it is the Canadian Eagle. Everyone knows from Hard Knocks. I'm not going to paint you a visual, physical picture of that. You just Google Canadian Eagle Bears and then let the image speak for itself. Theo Benedict, a guy who a lot of people that I trust, a lot of people I work with and collaborate with that are inside and have that knowledge at Hallis Hall, watched him in training camp. Theo Benedict had a really good training camp. And he has earned the right to be in the position right now to be the starting left tackle. Is that good news for the Chicago Bears? I honestly don't know. But if we're going to take this to where we want to go, the Chicago Bears at the very least need to improve the running game by about 10 to 15%. I'm not asking them to become a top 5 running team because I just don't think they have the guys when they hand the ball off to. I just don't think they have the guys to do it. DeAndre Swift, I don't think is a bell cow back. I think he's a guy that you can utilize in different ways, and I think they're utilizing him in too many ways right now. He's only averaging 3.3 yards per carry. That's a half yard of his career worst. And what was his career worst? He had it last year with the Chicago Bears when he averaged 3.8 yards per carry. So it's getting worse. The Chicago Bears as a team average only 102 rushing yards a game as a team. Now, you can look at that 2 ways, right? Now, if you roll the clocks back 3 years, and I'm going to invoke his name, so don't freak out, and you were looking at some of the teams when Justin Fields was running the offense, you know, and they had a good stretch there. They had that one stretch, I believe 6 weeks, where they were scoring, 30 points a game. Still losing games, but at least scoring points. When you look at those teams, they were leading the NFL in rushing. They were racking up 180, 200, 210 a game. And yes, Justin Fields had a lot to do with that. Probably maybe 50, 60 yards of that, and sometimes way more, depending on who the opponent was at the time. And Justin had some electric games in that span. So I'm not asking for us to be getting off the bus and running the football. I'm not asking them to rush for 200 yards a game. But 102 is a low number. 102 is just simply not acceptable. And 102, frankly, with a second-year quarterback who's still trying to learn, who we're still trying to protect, who we're still trying to progress, it's just not the number that you want. You want to be able to, at some point, lean on this running game to help you pick up a victory. And what's been fascinating about that is, even at that 102 number, I think it's actually been worse than you think. Because when you think about that 102 number, there's been several times this season, and I specifically think of the Dallas Cowboys game. And you go back to that third quarter, they ran that 17-play drive. It was a beautiful, beautiful, masterful drive. 17 plays. I believe they ran 11 straight run plays on that drive. Now, they didn't rack up a lot of rushing yards, but in that one moment, they got the job done on that one drive. That helped kind of push up the numbers a little bit. And they've done that at times where they've been able to commit to a running mentality 6-7 times in a row and just pound the rock, but the numbers aren't reflecting it. So the effectiveness simply isn't there. And as much as I want to just go, DeAndre Swift, you're awful, get out of here, I don't think he's awful. I'm just not a big fan. 3.3 yards per carry. It has to be on the player. It also has to be on the offensive line too as well. They need to do a better job. And maybe that is them getting into concert. Maybe it is them meshing together a little bit better. But against this Commanders team on the road, it's going to be loud. It's going to be Monday Night Football. You got to do better than that. So maybe that's a magic number for me, 102.5. In fact, I think 110 rushing yards in that game is a great number and a recipe for success against the Commanders. On the flip side of that, my other key to the game is guess who's actually really good at running the football? It's the Washington Commanders. If you want to say to yourself, give me a template of what the Bears could copy for us to get to the place that we want to be running game-wise, look at the Washington Commanders. I mean, they lead the NFL in rushing right now. They average 156 rushing yards per game. They average 5.9 yards per attempt. And this is the biggest key in the game to me because you want to know the other side of the ball. You've been watching Bears football. You know what's going on. Chicago Bears can't stop the run. Through week 5, they're the second worst rushing defense, in the NFL. They're allowing a league worst 6.2 yards per rush. So the Commanders averaging league best 5.9 yards per attempt. Bears allowing 6.2 yards per rush. I mean, the Raiders game alone, we all know it. Ashton Genty was a problem. They allowed 240 rushing yards in that game, 7.7 yards per clip on that carry. So we could talk all we want about Jaden Daniels, but personally, if he's a guy who even, let's just say, is still maybe recovering from his injury, let's say for a second that maybe he isn't 100%, what do you think Washington's going to do? They're going to try and run it down our throats. So I know we were going to talk a lot about, and you're going to look at the highlights, and you're going to watch stuff on TikTok or Instagram about Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams. Caleb versus Jaden, the two top picks in the 2023 class going against each other, locking horns. Who's going to be the winner? But frankly, I think this game is going to come down to when the ball isn't in their hands and when they turn around and they stick it in the gut of a running back. Can the Chicago Bears do a little bit better than what they've doing, which has been terrible? And can the Chicago Bears defense do a little bit better, which has been terrible, at stopping the Commanders' running game, which has been excellent? And we all know the story. We've watched football for a long time. If the Washington Commanders keep running the football, stay on the field, limit the Bears' opportunities, when the Bears do get on the field on offense, they have to make it count. All of a sudden, next thing you know, they're punting it back. Our defense gets tired. Our defense isn't very good anyways. Jailbreak, something bad happens. Commanders score. Now we're really in trouble. And when we talk about another key to the game, when we talked about it, and this is in tandem and in transition with the Commanders being great at running the ball and the Bears being terrible at stopping the run, a lot of it's going to come down to third down for me with the Commanders and getting off the field, limiting those opportunities, stopping drives, keeping the ball at midfield, allowing a first down or two, sure, but not letting them just grind it out all the way down the field. The Commanders right now, I know it's early on in the season, but the stats are the stats. They're the fourth worst team on third down conversions in the NFL. Want to hear a stat that'll make you feel good? Ben Johnson's Bears, sixth best. Over 40% clip right now, converting on third downs. And that's a tribute to Ben Johnson's play calling, Caleb Williams' decision-making, and most importantly, execution in those third down situations. And to be very fair, it's been choppy on offense. It hasn't looked perfect. It hasn't looked great. It hasn't looked consistent. But I have enjoyed that, I think, compared to past Bears offenses, which is a hell of a comparison because we've seen some real beauties in this town. And by beauties, I mean absolute horror shows. I think the Bears have done a pretty good job about staying out of really punitive down and distance. We haven't seen a ton of 3rd and 11 or as many 3rd and 12s or 2nd and 9s as we have in previous years. I think they've done a pretty good job of managing the down and distance to give them opportunities to pick up 3rd downs. And it reflects in the stats to this point that the Bears, on conversion percentage, this isn't how many times, and they don't get a bump because they had a bye week. This is just on percentages, that the Bears are 6th best in the NFL. Commanders, 4th worst right now. We got to keep that stat rolling. That's going to be a huge key for the Chicago Bears. Get them off the field. And get that situation going where, yes, okay, you're terrible at stopping the run. Totally understand that. You're allowing, they're picking up 5.9 yards per attempt. Okay. They get 6 yards on the first down. Sweet. On the second one, though, you got to show up. You got to hold them there and keep it to like a 3 and 4, right? A 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, and then they try and convert on 3rd down. Maybe they try and pass to whatever it is. They get off the field. Boom. Bears get the ball back. It's going to be stuff like that. And then my final key to the game is this one's obvious. This one's cosmetic. This one's probably more from a Bears fan perspective, and maybe this is a lesson that I need to tell myself or you out there listening on WLSM 890, is just keep your head on straight. It's going to be Monday Night Football. It's going to be a nationally televised game. And again, like I said in the beginning, I know they're going to be on the field, but they know in their heads that this production staff from Monday Night Football and ESPN, they're going to be ripping that Hail Mary, that Fail Mary shot and pass over and over again on the broadcast. They're going to single out Tyreek Stevenson and walk through his, frankly, boneheaded play at the end of that game. That also, frankly, really gave the Commanders a great shot at pulling off a miraculous play that, frankly, we are never going to ever see again. And there's going to be a lot of that going on. And I think it's going to be an interesting test between a coaching staff that wasn't a part of that, frankly doesn't care about that, and some players that, I'm not going to say that they care about it, but you'd be lying to me if you told me that they forgot about it, that they don't remember it, that they don't think about it, and that it won't cross their minds when they take the field there on Monday night. And if you remember that game, we're coming off a bye, feeling really good, played great against Jacksonville. The offense was absolute garbage for 3 quarters. Just really, really, really terrible. Like that in the Patriots game, coin toss about the worst offense that we put up all of last year. And then in that 4th quarter, Caleb Williams was able to make some plays. We're never going to forget, famously, on the goal line, handing the ball off to Doug Kramer, him fumbling the ball. That was a stupid decision. But Caleb, again, in the 4th quarter, made some plays. We took the lead. We were supposed to win. And then, of course, we didn't. So there's going to be a lot of that going into that game. And the Bears just need to navigate through that, control what they can control, focus up. And I think they got a decent shot at winning this one, which means it's time for my prediction. Bears are 2-2 on the season. I'm 3-1 on my calls, my win-loss calls. And maybe it's the bye week, and maybe I'm watching Cubs baseball, and maybe the weather here's been awesome, and maybe I just love living here in the city of Chicago, but I'm feeling kind of generous. I feel like that the Chicago Bears can win this game. I feel like the Chicago Bears are going to beat the Washington Commanders, and I think they're going to beat them 27-21. There, I said it. Key number for the Bears right now is they have done mostly a decent job, and I think the number for them all year is going to be about scoring 24. If Ben can get them to about 24 points, I think they're going to have an opportunity to win more games than they are going to lose, which makes them a plus 500 team, which is going to keep them in playoff contention, which I think would be a great win for this season. And coming off a bye week, a lot to prove. Rome Odunze looking really good right now. Maybe you get a healthy Colston Loveland back. DJ Moore is honestly, he's looked more involved. I'm not saying the results have really been there, but I just kind of like what I'm seeing from him on the field right now. Luther Burden, get him involved. See if you can get that running game going 10 to 15% a little bit better. And if they can play clean football and give themselves a shot to execute, I think that they can win this game. And if they do, they move to 3-2 and get a great opportunity the week after that against the Saints at home. And maybe, just maybe, we can start talking about confidence, momentum. And again, like I said in the beginning of this show, if they win on Monday, it isn't about a Bears fan starting to dream big. But for God's sakes, at least we can close our eyes and start to dream a little bit. And that's something that Bears fans haven't been able to enjoy for a while. And we're so thirsty and we're so ravenous for it that I'll simply just take what I can get at this point. I got the Bears winning 27-21. Hope I'm right. And after that game, I'll be back here next Saturday to break it down and see where the team goes from there.